The story begins in a banquet hall where a group of vampires are being addressed by their leader, whose name is Kirchner. At the time, they are also being hunted by Jaegers, which are the vampire hunters. When the Jaegers find out about where the vampires have gathered, they set out to attack the venue. However, one of them, called Yuliy, ignores the plan and charges into the building on his own, angrily slicing up the vampires. Since Yuliy has already gone in, the other Jaegers are left with no choice but to join him, and they are unable to get a hold of the supposed leader of the vampires, Kirchner. In pursuit of Kirchner, the Jaegers travel to Japan, where they lodge in the house of a rich baron. However, the daughter of the rich baron falls in love with Yuliy at first sight, although her father had accommodated them because their company, called V Shipping, which they used as a front to hide their real jobs of killing vampires, had helped him in the past. Upon their arrival in Japan, the Jaegers begin their investigation into the recent deaths in the city. Just then, they are informed of a recent killing and they head out to find out who is responsible. Fortunately, while the efforts of the police seem to be futile, Yuliy picks up the vampire scent from a woman and an ally whose disguise had successfully tricked the police. The woman happens to be a close ally to Kirchner, and when she figures out that the Jaegers have followed them to Japan, she tries to escape. Unfortunately for her, she isn't given the chance to do so. With nowhere else to run, she attacks Yuliy, who at this time is hell-bent on killing her. However, just before he is able to land the final blow, he is shot by an unknown person, causing him to pass out. When Yuliy finally wakes up, he finds himself in an unknown house being treated by a doctor. Just then, the head of the Jaegers, called Professor Willard, comes in and scolds him for not listening to orders, but he insists that he is unable to control himself when fighting against vampires due to the havoc they have caused him and his kind in the past. Apparently, the vampires attacked Yuliy's village 10 years ago and killed everyone there. This memory had haunted Yuliy and caused him to seek revenge on any vampire he finds in a bid to eradicate them. When the Baron's daughter, called Ryoko, finds out that Yuliy has been injured, she demands to go and see him. However, her request is denied by her overprotective father. Ignoring her father, she finds a way out of the mansion and to Yuliy's location. Later that night, the vampires attack the doctor's home and one of them succeeds in turning him into one of them. Yuliy angrily fights and kills her, but not before killing the doctor, who was just about to attack his own daughter. Ryoko arrives at the scene and witnesses all that has happened, and the sight terrifies her. Shortly after, Yuliy is in pursuit of another vampire he had just detected, and shockingly realizes that this vampire is actually his dead brother. The following day, the memories of his brother gradually come crawling back. When he meets with the professor, he reveals that the vampires will probably be in Japan in search of the Ark of the Sirius, which is rumored to give whoever wields it great knowledge and power. However, this Ark had been last seen in the now destroyed land of the Sirius where Yuliy and his family lived, just before his entire village was massacred by vampires. At that time, all those years ago, his brother had sacrificed his life to protect him from vampires, eventually leading him to become one himself. Meanwhile, Kirchner had been in cohorts with a notorious group called the Hyako Party and now decides to cut off their funding. The group has always had a keen hatred for foreigners and had only given an exception to the vampires due to this funding. However, with the funding out of the bag, they declare a hunt for vampires. On the other hand, the Jaegers receive news about Kirchner's appearance in Gotenba. In response, Yuliy is sent in the company of another to track him down. While on the train leading to the destination, he dashes out of the train into another, insisting that he smells blood. The two look around to observe and try to figure out where exactly the vampires he had sensed are. Shortly after, his brother Mikhail shows up, leaving him speechless. Yuliy is filled with doubt that his brother is truly alive and well. However, Mikhail tries to convince him to stop his futile plan to kill all vampires, since it would mean that he would have to kill his brother too. At that moment, the Hyako Party catches up with the train, since they had earlier found out that Kirchner was on it. They attack it with the aim of killing everyone on board, but unfortunately for them, Kirchner escaped. Just then, the leader of the Hyako Party sees a vicious-looking monster on board and assumes that the monster follows his orders. That assumption leads to his death as the monster cuts off his head, leaving his men scared and disorganized. Meanwhile, the other Jaegers hear about the attack and arrive just in time to save Yuliy and his partner from being overwhelmed by vampires. Moving further, Yuliy engages in a fierce battle with the monster but is saved by his brother, who ends up killing it, demanding that Yuliy do the same if he ever turns out to be that way. The despicable scientist who had created the monster gets angry with Mikhail for killing it. However, he is less bothered and is disturbed at Kirchner's declaration of war towards the Jaegers. When the professor finds out about the vampires' plan to attack them, he sends a message across telling them to be prepared. Surprisingly, the news about the pending attack by the vampires gets them excited, since they wouldn't need to look for them. They head out to lay traps and prepare fully for war. Firstly, Yuliy is tasked with telling Ryoko to inform her dad and the other humans in the building to get to a safe place before the fighting begins. Later that night, the vampires arrive just as they had prepared. However, they are left dumbfounded at the number of vampires attacking them. At this moment, they realize that the vampires had come for an all-out war. While Yuliy and Philip try to seek cover, they are met by Kirshner, who challenges Yuliy to a fight while Philip is being held against the wall by Mikhail. In fear of losing a comrade, Yuliy is more concerned about protecting Philly than fighting or killing Kirshner, who finds it to be a foolish choice. Luckily for the Jaegers, in the heat of the battle, some soldiers arrive and aid them in fighting. They open fire at the vampires, killing the bulk of them. Seeing that the battle isn't going like he had planned it to, Kirshner orders Mikhail to continue the fight in his place. The two brothers fight briefly, and not wanting to harm his brother, Mikhail disappears, urging him to live. With his brother gone, Yuliy chases after Kirshner, who at the time is about to kill the professor. Just then, he reveals the truth about the professor's involvement in the eradication of his village. Apparently, the professor was responsible for figuring out the location of the Ark of Sirius, which was in the village. Hearing this angers Yuliy, forcing him to reveal his true nature as a wolf and attacking Kirshner. Eventually, he kills Kirshner and demands an explanation from the professor. While the professor remains sorrowful about the incident and wishes that Yuliy kills him, Yuliy, on the other hand, considers the professor to be his only parent since he had saved his life on that day. Later on, with the battle won, the Jaegers find out that Kirshner was never the leader of the vampires. Instead, they had been led by a vicious vampire called Yevgraf. With Kirshner dead, Mikhail goes to meet Yevgraf, who is obsessed with getting the Ark of Sirius since he thinks it is the last hope of the vampire race. The two head deep into a cave which had been said to be the place where his father sealed the Ark of Sirius away. They get to a dead end with a barrier preventing vampires and humans from advancing further. Since Mikhail is the son of the man who had created the barrier and half Sirius, Yevgraf assumes that he would be able to get past it. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. This angers Mikhail, especially since he had only acted like he cared about the vampires all along, just to be able to lay his hands on the Ark of Sirius, which could free him from the blood pact with them. He reveals his true intentions by trying to kill Yevgraf, but that proves to be a very bad decision. Meanwhile, after hearing about the location of a clue to finding the Ark of Sirius, Yuliy feels like he owes it to his slain people to get it. He is met by a disguised vampire called Bishop, who joins him to meet the man who knows the location of the Ark. However, when they get there, they see the man being attacked by vampires. With not much of a thought, Yuliy charges in to help. Eventually, Yuliy and Bishop succeed in chasing the vampires away. However, the old man in question refuses to tell them anything substantial. After leaving, Yuliy comes back again, more determined to find answers. The old man refuses once again and demands that Yuliy return to his village. In reply, Yuliy informs him about the massacre that had taken place years ago. This prompts the old man to hand them a map that will lead them to the location of the cave where Yuliy's father had sealed himself and the Ark. Back at Yevgraf's base, Mikhail finally wakes up and finds out about the recent attack on his brother. In a bid to warn him, he tries to escape, but is caught. He is threatened to stay put and let his brother arrive at the cave. This is because Yevgraf intends to use him to get to the Ark, since his elder brother has proven to be useless. On the other hand, the professor and the other Jaegers successfully find Yuliy's village. While looking through the ruins, he discovers an identical Ark of Sirius, which he keeps safely, hoping to hand it over to Yuliy. At that moment, Yuliy and Bishop are attacked by the mad scientist who had successfully replicated the fierce monster. The fight doesn't last for so long as Yuliy makes use of the ice, causing the entire monster army and their psychopathic master to fall off the snowy cliff. Shortly after, Yuliy and Bishop arrive at the cave in the map. Getting to the dead end, Yuliy goes further, overcoming the pains and eventually meeting his father. At this point, Yuliy is made to relive all that had happened in his past and what had led his father to take the Ark of Sirius away from the village. The memories revealed that his father had done so due to a custom that barred any human or foreigner from knowing about or seeing the Ark. On the occasion that they do, they will have to be killed. At the time, Yuliy's father believed that a law like that wouldn't give them a chance to relate more with other species. This had prompted him to take the Ark out of the village and seal it in the cave. Later on, Yuliy's father hands him the Ark, promising to watch over him as he figures out what to do with it. Since Yuliy had gotten the Ark, Yevgraf forcefully orders Mikhail to get the Ark from him. Shockingly, with the Ark in Yuliy's hands, Bishop threatens him to hand it over. This causes Yuliy to reveal that he had known about Bishop's true identity as a vampire from the first day they met, but had pretended not to because he had seen how sincere Bishop was about getting rid of the Ark in order to get to Yevgraf. Hearing these words causes Bishop to change his mind and form an alliance once again with Yuliy. Shortly after, they are attacked by Mikhail and two other vampires. At this point, Mikhail seems to lack control of himself and is focused on harming Yuliy. He stabs Yuliy with a dagger and takes the Ark of Sirius from him, handing it over to the other vampires, who head off immediately to present it to Yevgraf. Unfortunately for them, they do not go too far as Bishop intercepts them and kills one while doing battle with the other. The two brothers continue fighting and Yuliy successfully breaks through his brother, causing him to snap out of it. Meanwhile, Bishop gets the Ark and is about to kill the other vampire when Yevgraf arrives, taking the Ark from him and leaving him dead. Before leaving, he deploys his vampires on them. Now surrounded, Yuliy and Mikhail hope for a miracle. Fortunately, it arrives in the form of the Jaegers, who waste no time in shooting rounds at the vampires, giving Yuliy a chance to chase after Yevgraf. With the Ark finally in Yevgraf's hand, he throws it into his mouth, causing him to feel more powerful and knowledgeable. However, the power corrupts him, making him utter delusional thoughts of starting a new vampire race and not caring about the existing ones. Shortly after, the power of the Ark overwhelms him and transforms him into a large and vicious beast. Upon seeing this, the professor hands Yuliy the counterpart of the Ark of Sirius he had found in the ruins. With this he expects would be of use in taming Yevgraf. Together with Mikhail, Yuliy makes good use of his counterpart and defeats Yevgraf, just in time for Mikhail to pull out the Ark from Yevgraf's eyes. Unfortunately, the events take a toll on Mikhail, who eventually dies. The death of his brother, coupled with the hope of achieving his father's dream of making different worlds exist alongside each other, leads him on a new journey. One which makes him determined to become the one who protects and brings the world together. And this brings the anime to an end. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on another video. Until next time, take care.